Welcome to Manifest Your Dreams, where we dive deep into the path of the chosen ones. If you're watching this, it's no accident. God has brought you here for a reason. You are one of His chosen, set apart for a higher purpose. But with that calling comes great responsibility, and there are dangers you must be aware of. Today we're going to talk about 3 critical mistakes that can destroy your future, your purpose, and even your connection to God if you're not careful. These mistakes aren't just small errors, they have the potential to pull you off the divine path, leaving you lost and distant from your true calling. That's why you can't afford to ignore this message. If you feel that urge to click away, fight it, because this might be the most important message you hear today. God's chosen people are often faced with challenges, and knowing how to avoid these 3 destructive mistakes could be the key to unlocking everything He has in store for you. This is not just a message, it's a warning, a wake-up call. If you ignore these mistakes, you risk losing it all. But if you pay attention, you'll stay aligned with your purpose. So stay with me until the very end, and don't miss a single sign. God has a reason for showing you this message, and you need to hear it. And if God is helping you stay focused by bringing this message to you, it's only right that we show our love and gratitude to Him. Go ahead and drop "I love God" in the comments as a declaration of your faith and love. This small act not only strengthens your connection to Him, but also inspires others to do the same. Let's show God that we are listening, ready, and committed. Let's dive into mistake number 1, comparing yourself to others. Have you ever found yourself looking at someone else's life, maybe on social media or in daily interactions, and thinking, why can't my life be more like theirs? Or perhaps you felt envy when seeing someone succeed where you've struggled, wondering why you aren't achieving the same. This habit of comparing yourself to others is a common mistake that many fall into without realizing the spiritual damage it can cause. It may seem harmless, but comparison can quietly destroy your peace, purpose, and connection to God. If you've never felt this way, it's important to stay aware, as this is a trap that easily sneaks up on many of us. And if you have struggled with comparison, now is the time to reflect on why it's so harmful and how to overcome it. In His book, God shares the story of 2 brothers, Cain and Abel. Cain, in his jealousy of Abel's offering to God, made the grave mistake of letting comparison rule his heart. Instead of focusing on his own relationship with God and offering his best, Cain allowed envy to consume him, leading to anger and ultimately a tragic outcome. This is the danger of comparison. It blinds you to your blessings and distorts your purpose. It takes your eyes off what God has given you and directs your attention to what others have, causing dissatisfaction and resentment. As a chosen one, you have a unique path and purpose designed specifically for you. When you compare yourself to others, you are essentially questioning God's plan for your life. Each person's journey is different, and God's timing for you is perfect, even if it doesn't match someone else's timeline. What you see in others might seem glamorous or more successful, but you don't know the full picture of their struggles or the lessons they are meant to learn. In today's world, especially with social media, it's easier than ever to fall into the comparison trap. But remember, what people show on the surface doesn't always reflect reality. The enemy often uses comparison to distract you from the blessings and purpose that God has already placed in your life. It breeds envy, dissatisfaction, and even doubt in God's goodness. When you focus on others, you lose sight of the unique calling and gifts God has given you. If you've fallen into this mistake, know that it's not too late to turn things around. God calls us to focus on our own path and trust that He is guiding us according to His perfect plan. Stop looking at others for validation or success and start focusing on the personal journey God has prepared for you. Let's take a moment to pray. God, I come to you today, asking for the strength to stop comparing myself to others. Help me to focus on the blessings you've given me and trust in your perfect plan for my life. Remind me that my journey is unique and that I am exactly where you want me to be. Guide my heart to be grateful for what I have and keep my eyes fixed on you. Amen. If this prayer resonates with you, drop Amin in the comments, and let's remind each other that we are all on our own unique paths chosen by God. Let go of comparison and embrace the journey that has been set for you. And my chosen friend, don't dare to drift away at this point. You need to hear this message till the very end, as when God is showing you these truths, it's because He wants to guide you toward a breakthrough. These words are meant for you, and turning away now might mean missing the very insight you've been praying for. Stay focused, because this could be the key to unlocking the next chapter of your journey. Let's dive into mistake number 2, taking God's grace for granted. Have you ever found yourself thinking, God will forgive me, as you make choices that don't align with His will? It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that because God's grace is always available, we can live however we want without real consequences. But this mistake, taking God's grace for granted, is more dangerous than it seems. It can slowly weaken your relationship with Him and pull you away from the purpose He has for you. God's grace is a precious gift. He extends it to us, not because we deserve it, but because of His love and mercy. However, that grace isn't a free pass to live recklessly. As a chosen one, you're called to honor God's grace by walking in obedience and living a life that reflects His goodness. When you take that grace for granted, you risk losing sight of the path He has set for you. In His book, God tells the story of the people of Israel who repeatedly turned away from Him, despite His continued mercy and grace. They took His patience and forgiveness for granted, thinking they could live as they pleased and still expect His protection and blessings. But their disobedience eventually led to consequences: captivity, suffering, and separation from the blessings God had prepared for them. This story reminds us that while God's grace is abundant, it's not something to be abused. Many of us, without even realizing it, fall into this same pattern. We make decisions based on our desires, believing that we can always turn back to God for forgiveness. And while God is always ready to forgive, living this way creates a cycle of disobedience that can distance us from Him. We become numb to His voice, and over time, our relationship with Him weakens. Taking God's grace for granted also limits the blessings and opportunities He has in store for you. When you walk in obedience, you align yourself with His will, and that's where true peace, joy, and purpose are found. But when you take His grace lightly, you miss out on the deeper relationship and fulfillment that comes from fully living in His presence. If you found yourself slipping into this mistake, know that it's not too late to return to God with a humble heart. He is always ready to welcome you back, but it requires repentance and a sincere commitment to change. Don't let the enemy convince you that God's grace is a license to live as you please. Instead, let it be a reminder of His incredible love, inspiring you to live a life that honors Him. Let's take a moment to pray. God, I come before you, recognizing that I've taken your grace for granted at times. I ask for your forgiveness and guidance to help me walk in obedience. Thank you for your endless mercy, and help me never to take it lightly again. Guide my steps so I can honor you in all that I do. Amin. If this prayer touches your heart, drop Amin in the comments. Let's encourage each other to live in a way that truly honors the grace God has given us. Remember, His grace is a gift. Don't take it for granted. Let's dive into mistake number 3, letting pride take over. Pride is one of the most dangerous traps we can fall into, and it's a mistake many people make without even realizing it. It creeps in subtly, disguising itself as self-confidence or independence, but when pride takes over, it can completely disconnect you from God and His purpose for your life. As a chosen one, you've been given great gifts and a unique calling. But pride can block you from fully realizing that potential. It's not just a small issue, it's a spiritual danger that can destroy everything you've worked toward. Have you ever felt like you don't need help, or that you can handle everything on your own? Or perhaps you've experienced moments where you've resisted correction or advice, thinking that you already know the best way forward? This is how pride starts to take root. At first, it feels like you're just being strong or capable, but in reality, pride is closing you off from God's guidance and the help of those He places in your life. In His book, God shares the story of King Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was a powerful king who, in his pride, stood on the rooftop of his palace and boasted about the great city of Babylon that he had built by his own power. But his pride led to his downfall. God humbled him, and Nebuchadnezzar lost everything: his kingdom, his sanity, and his place among men, until he acknowledged God's sovereignty. Only then was he restored. This story serves as a reminder that no matter how much success or strength we achieve, pride can blind us to the truth. All of our achievements are by God's grace, not by our own power. Pride is deceptive. It makes us think we're in control, that we don't need God as much as we really do. But here's the truth. The moment pride takes over, you begin to distance yourself from God's plan. Pride convinces you that you can do it all on your own, and that's when you lose the humility necessary to grow spiritually. The Bible says, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. James 4:6. When we let pride rule, we are essentially pushing God away, and that's a dangerous place to be. One of the most harmful aspects of pride is that it prevents you from accepting help, guidance, or correction. God often speaks to us through the people around us: friends, family, mentors. And when you're too proud to listen, you cut yourself off from the very wisdom that could lead you to breakthrough. Pride tells you that you've got it all figured out, but humility reminds you that we always need God's help and the support of others to grow. It's important to understand that pride doesn't just affect your relationship with God, it can also damage your relationships with others. Pride makes it hard to admit when you're wrong, to ask for forgiveness, or to forgive others. It can create distance and conflict in relationships, leaving you isolated and disconnected. God calls us to live in humility, to love others, and to serve with a heart that's open to correction and growth. If you recognize that pride has been creeping into your life, the good news is that it's not too late to change. God is always ready to humble our hearts if we ask for His help. He desires to restore us, but we must first acknowledge our pride and turn back to Him with a spirit of humility. Pride may lead to destruction, but humility opens the door to God's grace and favor. Let's take a moment to pray. God, I come before you, acknowledging that pride has taken root in my heart at times. I ask for your forgiveness and your help in humbling myself before you. Help me to let go of my pride and trust fully in your wisdom and guidance. Open my heart to correction and teach me to walk in humility, always recognizing that my strength comes from you. Amen. If this prayer speaks to you, drop Amen in the comments. Pride can be a heavy burden, but together we can lift it by surrendering ourselves to God and walking in humility. Stay strong, stay humble, and let God guide your steps. As we come to the close of this important message, remember that these three mistakes, comparing yourself to others, taking God's grace for granted, and letting pride take over, can quietly but powerfully steer you off the path God has laid for you. Each mistake may seem small at first, but if left unchecked, they can destroy your connection to God and the purpose He has for your life. But here's the good news. By recognizing these mistakes and making the effort to change, you can realign yourself with God's will. He is always ready to forgive, guide, and help you grow. All He asks is that you remain humble, trust in His timing, and stay focused on your unique journey. Don't let these mistakes rob you of the blessings, peace, and purpose God has in store for you. If this message has touched your heart, take a moment to drop "I'm ready" in the comments to show your commitment to growth and your desire to stay on the right path. Together, we can walk in humility, trust in God's grace, and keep our eyes focused on the purpose He has called us to fulfill. Stay strong, my friend, and remember, you are chosen for something greater.